Hi, I'm Yvonne Webb of Action Coach Business Coaching.
And I'm Stuart Clark, the Managing Director of Russell & Russell, and we're the co-hosts and sponsors of the Glasgow Business Stories podcast. If you're enjoying Glasgow Business Stories, then why not subscribe to the channel? There's new videos dropping every fortnight with great business stories from great business owners, so we don't want you to miss out.
So Peter, welcome to Glasgow Business Stories. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Just usually start by you telling us who you are and what you do.
Fantastic. So I'm Pete McBride, and I'm the founder and owner of Scintilla, and we're a firm of patent and trademark attorneys, and we help innovative companies control their destiny and fuel the growth by organising, optimising and monetising their intellectual property.
And was that where you always started out your career? Have you always been in that field?
I have, yeah. I've been in IP for 26 years now, and so after doing physics at uni, I looked around for like what job to do, and I'd never heard of patent attorneys, but it sounded quite interesting because it's a mix of technology, law, language, business, and I thought that quite appealed. And then I just wrote a few speculative letters and then ended up with a traineeship. So I worked at one firm for about 12 years, became a director there and did 4 years of that. But I always had the wee itch to do my own thing and start my own company. So took the plunge back in 2013. So quite a kind of boring CV. So it was about 50-50 in my career in employment versus then starting my own business.
And what was the catalyst that gave you that push to make the move and start?
Good question. There's a whole range of different things. I got slowly more and more frustrated where I was, and you start to look around at options, and I kind of felt other places were just more of the same, basically. And I always had the little rough idea of being an entrepreneur. So when I was like a teenager, me and my mate had a kind of gardening business. It was, didn't do anything good, but it planted a wee seed, almost literally, of kind of, be fun to run a business someday. I never really gave up on that idea. So it was just kind of, it seemed like the natural thing to do. I had to kind of scratch that itch, as it were.
And was it any risk associated with you got a young family? How did your wife feel about you going around going to set up by myself compared to leaving a nice salaried job?
It was interesting actually because when I initially wanted to launch, it then turned out not to be the right time, for personal reasons, and I had to kind of hold on to that ambition. And it was another 4 years before I then actually started the business. So I was just making sure everything was aligned kind of family-wise. But so when I did launch the business, my kids were 3 and 1 years old, so it was quite hectic at that time. And there was obviously a lot of financial risk involved because I didn't really have any clients or guaranteed income. But at the same time, I had that conviction. I knew very, very strongly, because I'd been kind of thinking about it and wanting to do it for a long time, that I just had to do it. So that's kind of how that went. And then I remember getting I think I got a personal loan of 20 grand from Tesco Bank or something like that, and then thought that's going to be a wee rainy day fund, and then that helped me kind of started my kind of what was it, the PIP claims, the kind of like insurance. I had a missold insurance policy on my credit card, so a few wee bits involved to scramble. So I had a bit of funds for some rainy day, and then just kind of went for it. So yeah. And
had you been involved in the kind of sales and marketing side of things in your employed role, or was that just the first time kind of thrown at the deep end?
One of the biggest concerns was because my role was not really business development. I'm quite kind of introverted by nature and kind of don't enjoy like being out there and doing stuff like this or whatever. So I was a bit kind of anxious, and I was very good at looking after clients, and that they would grow as clients under me because, I could have conversations and develop those relationships. But my role was never really to bring clients in to the business. For inquiries that came in, I would be fielding those and then converting them, but I'm not generating that. So it was the biggest question in my mind, how could I do it? But I really felt it ended up being a lot easier than I was expecting. And I'm not saying it was easy, it was just easier than I was expecting. And that's because when you work for a big firm, they've got a reputation, and you turn up and you're basically a cog in a machine, and people have heard of the firm, and you're kind of, battling against that. But when you start your own company, you go to networking events and you meet people, then you can connect. People connect with you much more, and they know that what you say is what you mean, and you'll do what you say. And people I found in the business community really helpful to say, "Oh, you just started out, brilliant. You should speak to this guy or this girl," and kind of make connections for you. So everybody was like super helpful, and I think just people could realize that I'm not kind of like a salesperson, and you make that connection with people, and it just became quite natural to kind of get clients on board and start to grow.
Was it through networking events that the majority of the business came at first, or was it through
Yeah,
some contacts?
So there were a few clients came over. Obviously, had to deal with something fun called restrictive covenants from the last job, where I couldn't poach clients, and I respected those, obviously. So I did have a few clients that came over, but fundamentally it was kind of just building from scratch. But I still remember like the first client that I won. It was maybe my third client overall, but the first one that I'd won from scratch, and it was just from like going to a networking event. I was through in Edinburgh a lot. I was through maybe 3 times a week in Edinburgh, and go to all kinds of little meetups and networking clubs and things like this. And I kind of bumped into a lawyer who became like a good kind of contact for me. And then he, by coincidence and of timing, had somebody that he'd kind of had contact with, was looking for advice. And I didn't know at the time, but I quoted them about a quarter of what the incumbent had been doing. So I was kind of very favorably received and won that work. And that was, that was a real buzz, kind of getting that first client win that I kind of generated all by myself, as it were.
So what were the learnings in the business in the early years when you were just starting out? What were the things you had to learn and grow into?
Well, yeah, aside from the kind of business development, pretty much like everything, I would say. So I kind of knew my trade, as it were. Like I knew how to do the job, how to do that. And actually one of the things which became, or has a potential to become a downfall later on, is I'm actually quite interested in everything and how it all works. So I really enjoyed setting up all the different stuff. Like I love all the IT stuff. So I tried to write my own kind of MySQL database to kind of put keep track of deadlines and things. And then I realized that's too complicated, and I had to buy some software to help me do that. But I really enjoy the IT side of things. The finance was kind of hard, and that's where people like Stuart have helped me out a lot, because I just find it all gobbledygook. I still get net and gross and credit and debit mixed up completely all the time. So it takes a real effort to kind of get ahead in the game for that. I remember feeling at the start, I've got cash in the bank account, but I've no idea if the taxman's going to come and grab it, and kind of, it took a while to kind of get my head into the rhythm of VAT returns and corporation tax and all that kind of stuff. So that's probably one of the biggest challenges for me personally, was the kind of finance and things. And I think as well with the marketing and the business development, I tend to overthink it a little bit too much, and we still do that in the business. I think a lot of my peers and competitors are in the same boat, really. It's a hard nut to crack kind of thing, but that's something that you kind of tend to overthink sometimes. And that's still like a learning. I'm still learning lots of things, to be honest. So.
And when did you feel like the business started to scale? How far in were you?
Still getting there, so it's so in terms of timeline, I was just by myself at the start, and like in retrospect, if it had a co-founder, maybe we would have gone a bit faster. But at the same time, it was benefit to me to kind of get a lot of stuff out of my system and work out how things worked. So my first crew member joined me after a couple of years, and that's Gerard, who's still with us today, kind of key person in the business. And then we kind of went gradually from there, based on when we had the kind of confidence. I guess one of the first times I felt we're actually scaling was a couple of years ago, where by that time I had an office in Manchester, and we had a kind of team away day, and there was maybe 12, 13 people. And I realized that I personally employed all of these people, and it just had quite an impact on me seeing everybody like together. And then I brought my colleague Suzanne on board 3 years ago. So she was in-house head of IP at ARM, like a big semiconductor design company in Cambridge. So she's running the Manchester office, and I brought her on board to drive a lot of the kind of consulting and strategy work that we do, and bringing a kind of peer into the business made a big difference, and somebody with a kind of complementary skill set, but a shared sense of values and things like that. So that kind of has really helped in terms of actually starting to scale and grow the business. But it happens gradually, because a lot of my clients are tech companies, software companies, and so one of companies we work with is called QuantCore. They got a £2.5 million investment recently, which we're celebrating as a company. But guys like that, they get an investment, then overnight they've got 30 people, and then they're going for the next round, and so on and so forth. In professional services, it's a bit slower. Scaling means more people, and things like that. So it feels more gradual. But it's kind of every so often you look back and say, oh, it's like going on a hill walk. You look back and say, oh, I've come quite far now, kind of thing. So, yeah.
And can you break down the component parts of what it is you actually do? Maybe tell some stories to bring to life for us. When would people engage with you? What kind of work do you help people with?
Sure. So, yeah, fundamentally, our core professionals are patent attorneys and trademark attorneys. So every business has got something we call intellectual property, and it's basically things you've created and innovated, stuff you've come up with from your creativity. And there's lots of different legal tools to protect your intellectual property, or your IP, as we call it. So one of the most powerful tools is a patent, where you can say this is an invention and it's mine, and once I get the patent, nobody else can sell or commercialize that invention. Now, to get that patent, you have to apply to the government patent office, but it's very complicated, and that's where we come in to do that kind of work. We draft a document and negotiate with the patent office to get the patent granted. Similarly, with trademarks, you can have a company name, and to prevent somebody from ripping off the company name, you can get a registered trademark that gives you a good set of tools to kind of go after people and enforce your rights. And similarly with designs, you're innovating a new product design, you can protect the shape and appearance of that as well. So these are the kind of core rights that we secure for people, and having your IP protected in that way is critical to actually raising investment and driving value into the business. So every business has got intellectual property, whether it's something you can protect with patents, trademarks, designs, or whether it's so-called softer IP, like your trade secrets, your know-how, your confidential information. And there's a tremendous value in that IP. And if you're not taking steps to protect it, even before protecting it, recognizing it, working out what you've got is a critical, important part of it. And then some of the protection mechanisms will be free, because it's just about having good cybersecurity or good labeling of different folders and things like that. So it's quite kind of mundane. And some of it will be more expensive, like filing a patent or things like this. So we help get that protection in place. And really, we believe make a big difference to people's lives in terms of getting that investment or raising a higher sum of investment because you can protect your IP. So we worked with a company called Oxford Ionics, who do some fancy quantum computing stuff down in Oxford, and they had $1 billion exit recently. It was a stock deal with an American company called IonQ, but we helped them organize all of their IP and get it into shape so that the diligence process went smoothly. And obviously in that kind of deep tech space, which we do a lot of work in, that was a big part of the deal.
So it's not just preparing a patent, you're going in and doing almost an IP audit and strategy for going forward as well then?
Absolutely. So writing the patent is our kind of core job, or filing the trademarks, but we're also very interested in what goes behind it, the kind of innovation process more broadly. And we have a kind of lot of corporate experience in the team that can help with getting your IP in shape, because we're passionate about saying to people, okay, maybe you filed a patent because somebody somewhere said it was a good idea. That's great for us. But it's actually, what is that specific patent and what is it doing for your business? How is it aligned with your business objectives and your business goals? And it takes a bit of time to tease that out sometimes. But we like to work closely with clients to make sure that there's a business case for the investments that they make.
And are there instances where people think they're covered and they're not then? I'm guessing as a business grows, evolves, my product service changes or whatever, I think I've got my IP nailed.
Yeah.
But, what businesses are there out there that...
Absolutely. It evolves over time. So it's like anything else that needs to be audited and reviewed on a regular basis to make sure your coverage matches what you actually are doing. A classic example is on the field of trademarks. So you can register a trademark in different classifications based on the products that you sell. So you think of Penguin books and Penguin biscuits, different companies, but the same brand, but nobody gets confused because it's different goods and services. But you can initially register a trademark for what you're doing, but as your business evolves, then you maybe need to look at different classifications. Or as, do you need to protect yourself in Roblox? Does your patent registry or does your trademark registration cover virtual game spaces and things like this? So as technology and society evolves, you've got to look at how you're covered. And the same with patents, because when you file it, we typically go very broad, and then you have to negotiate with the patent office and it can get a bit narrower. And so sometimes people can think, I've got my whole technology area covered, but really a patent is one invention or one specific trick within that. And sometimes people, they need to know what they have and haven't covered with it. But we help guide in that process and give advice along the way.
So if I've got a global business or I trade in multiple countries, does that change how the trademark or patent is registered?
Yeah, so the rights are geographic in nature. So there's different laws in different countries. And the way it works is when we would act directly before patent offices, there's something called a European patent. So we could get a European patent directly, or a UK patent, or like a UK trademark or UK registered design. And when it comes to other countries, we invest a lot in having relationships with, our counterparts in America, China, Japan, Brazil, wherever else, and we would kind of work with them. So for SMEs and local companies, we can act as a kind of center point for the global protection. But we do that working closely with, say, an American patent attorney, and we take care of the core part of the work, and then they make sure it complies with the local American law. So we've got a lot of experience in kind of managing things globally. For some of the larger corporate clients, they may have different outsourced providers for different countries. So we might take care of like the European side of things, and an American firm would take care of the American side of things, and it gets administered by them. But there's a lot of different ways. Like for larger technology companies, they would have in-house IP departments, and then they outsource to different providers. But what we do for scale-ups is we kind of bridge that gap, because we can provide a kind of fractional SIPO service So CIPO is a Chief Intellectual Property Officer. So when somebody's building out a big portfolio of IP, it's complex to administer and manage. And so we can provide these kind of fractional services to kind of guide that part of companies' strategies. But then for larger corporate clients, then they have their own in-house providers. And it's good to work with them because they know what they're doing. We get like a good instruction and we can do it. And there's a bit of a volume play going on there. But we love helping people grow from that startup spin out up to kind of growth and scale up stage. And we can use our insights to kind of help them get from A to B along the way.
And what kind of industries is it that you're typically working in? Is there any specific niches that you have?
Yeah, quite a wide range. So patent work is very technical, and we're slightly different from regular lawyers because we have science backgrounds, and we need that to kind of understand the technologies. So I'm a physics background. My colleagues are working in physics or electrical engineering or mechanical engineering and different fields. So there's quite sector specific. So we're working with deep tech, software and AI, but also energy, net zero technologies, renewables, oil and gas and things like this. And then on the trademarks and branding side, we're working with, many different sectors. We do a lot of life sciences stuff as well. But getting somebody pharma or biotech is the next stage of the Scintilla evolution. So that's kind of where we're at. So many different sectors, which is part of the enjoyment of the job,
Yeah, something different every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that kind of different sectors, is that grown out as the team's grown out, or?
Yeah, so my initial, my own background kind of developed into doing a lot of semiconductors and photonics and telecoms kind of work. And so my initial business plan was to focus on that niche and go deep into that niche to work with, potentially, bigger clients. And so that remains a core strength, but we've since expanded into the trademark side of things, into the IP strategy and consulting, and into the energy sectors, energy and engineering as well. So that's part of the growth.
And so then how do you manage, if you've not been involved in those other areas, do you still kind of review those people's work, or is it a case of actually you hire at the right level that they take on? What was your kind of, how do you get to the size of the team that you have with, if your knowledge is...
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess I'm going on the kind of classic entrepreneurial journey where you start from your trade, and then to build a business, you have to kind of step back and run the business. And so it's quite easy for me to kind of manage people in different sectors and things. The trademarks side is a bit different. The business model is a bit different. But Kirsten, my trademark colleague, we work closely together to do that. And it's been good to take his experience into account when building out that function as well. So it's that's kind of something I develop.
And how have you found that, going from doing everything yourself to passing on the work and delegating? Has it been easy, or?
It's hard, actually. There's almost a sense of loss that comes with it because, if I go back, 15 years ago, one of our specialisms is software patents, because in the field of software, it's hard to get patents because they have to be technical in nature, right? And there's lots of like stupid borderline case law about, what counts as technical and what doesn't. So about 15 years ago, I would have been expert in that. I would have known every case and, absolutely every little nuance of the law. And so one possible route would be to push that level of expertise and go niche and try and deliver higher and higher value to these things. But in a sense, I've had to leave that behind. Now, I'm still an expert in that field, but am I following it in the depth that I was following it 15 years ago when I was a kind of cog in a machine at a big company? I'm not, but my colleagues are, and they're on it. So it's kind of, there's a sense of loss almost in terms of actually I do enjoy that. I enjoy the client work and I enjoy aspects of it. So it is hard sometimes. You feel a sense of loss, but it's a choice I've made.
You're not on the tools anymore. You're
yeah
managing people is your role.
And managing people is interesting because in the world of patents, it's all like scientists and engineers. So you get a lot of people in my profession who don't have people skills as their top kind of interest. But I've always quite enjoyed that aspect of it, and something that gives me a lot of satisfaction is building a good workplace for people to be. And an insight for me was when you start a business, you're just thinking, oh, I need revenue, I need clients, I need work coming in the door, and you get to a stage where you know that the clients are going to come, and you realize that actually the key to growing the business is getting people and colleagues into the door, like different attorneys and different paralegals and other functions into the business, and providing incentives and a good place to work. That's the key to kind of growing the company. And that's something I kind of focus on a lot. So I take a lot of pride in how we do it. We don't get it, not perfect, but that's the kind of part that I quite enjoy, is kind of developing the team as well.
And what are some of the examples of what you've implemented that's helped, create that conducive environment?
Yeah, so one of the big things is a kind of innovation. I spoke to lots of people about this who were peers and experts in the industry, and they said it couldn't be done and shouldn't be done. And that's basically to look at how we measure how we price our services and how we actually measure performance in the company. So traditionally in law, patent attorney field, in professional services, people use a tool called the billable hour, where you record time in 6-minute units and then charge it out at your hourly rate as a way of pricing what you do. And it's kind of crazy because there's not really any other industry where, a prospective client comes and says, how much is this going to cost? And you say, well, I'll tell you after I've done the job. And that's just a totally crazy way of doing it. Now, lawyers, patent attorneys, professionals have been working on fixed fee basis for many, many years. It's like a trend that's very, very well established. But we've taken that even further, because with a fixed fee, you're still recording time and making a judgment as to whether you've won or lost based on that. And I thought it's not really, there's a deeper kind of mindset shift that I'm trying to encourage. And so what we're doing now is actually getting rid of billable hours entirely. Like, we're not recording the time anymore. And what we're doing is just effectively setting a price before doing a job, agreeing that scope of work, and then we deliver the job to the price that's been agreed. And we have a different way of looking at it, where we look at the scope and how that has or hasn't varied. And we do a review after a job to make sure it went to plan. But it gives certainty to clients. It frees up my team from having to record time. And it changes the whole mindset, because I don't want to value people based on like how much labor you put in, how much sweat you put in. So because billable hours as a model, it only goes one direction. And there's lawyers, the latest headline is $3,400 as an hourly rate for top American lawyers. So, the only solution to improve profitability is to increase that hourly rate and sweat it and push it as much as you can. And that the other thing with top American law firms is they'll be expected to record about 2,400 hours in a year. Like, to have that recorded, billed and paid for. And that's about 10 hours a day, every single day. And that just drives a lot of undesirable behavior, padding timesheets and all that kind of thing. So there's a famous kind of case where a lawyer got disciplined because they charged, I think it was 28 hours in a single day to clients. So the whole system just incentivizes a way of thinking of like a person as a machine that's doing a job, and to kind of like push that utilization. And I just think I don't value my people as like machines that can just work hard. I value the creativity, the insight, the expertise that they can provide to our clients. So it's a completely different kind of mindset in terms of how we value our own intellectual capital, you know, because it's the expertise and the kind of knowledge that we have that we're pricing, and what we're delivering to clients isn't the number of hours that we work. We're delivering an outcome, we're delivering a value. So by getting rid of the hours as a way of thinking about it, we're much more focused on the outcomes and the values that we're providing.
So I know you had one of your luckiest moments in business at Edinburgh Airport. Tell us about that.
Yeah, this just dates back to starting out. So my kind of rationale was to focus deep on semiconductors and things. And it's just, I guess, like a lucky break where we started to act for a company called Dialogue Semiconductor. And that became, you know, a very significant client for us. And it was just from, you know, me working my contact and network. So there's an engineer who'd kind of moved to that company that worked for somebody I was restricted from. And I reached out to him along with loads of other people to say, oh, I've just set up a new firm, what's going on? And he said, oh, well, maybe I'll introduce you to the guy that runs the IP for Dialogue. And he was kind of passing through Edinburgh Airport. So I managed to go to the airport, have a meeting with him. And that was like the first chat with him. And then that led to getting a test case. And the test case came from the Edinburgh site that they had. So I was kind of, my play was like, I could be the local guy for Edinburgh. And I could be on hand to meet with the inventors, meet with the engineers, work out what's going on. So then I got a test case from that Edinburgh site, and I was brilliant and we did a good job there. Then I got a test case from somewhere more glamorous, a place called Swindon. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, it's not restricted because we can do it by, you know, video call or whatever. And then we started getting work from lots of different countries. So that client has now taken me to many different places around the world. So, you know, in China and America and Europe kind of thing. So, so that kind of one meeting turned into, you know, a very valuable kind of client that would really help me grow the business later on. So it was kind of one of my early lucky breaks, I would say, in the business.
And what brings you most joy in business?
I think I was saying earlier, the kind of the people and making a difference to my team, and actually doing a good job for clients as well, and having, you know, feeling that you make a difference to your clients' businesses is very important to me as well. But I'd say actually, you know, being able to provide a supportive work environment for the team is probably something I take the most kind of satisfaction from, I would say.
Well, thanks for sharing your story, Pete. We always close off by asking you, what's your guiding principle in business? What would you say?
Oof, my guiding principle. There's probably quite a few guiding principles. I would say it's hard to kind of summarize, and I guess it's one guiding thing for me is always acting with integrity in business. And having that kind of like feeling of just doing the right thing and having that sense of professionalism, and that's important, because the moment you try and take shortcuts, then it just ends up getting found out. And I think particularly in my field of professional services, your reputation is everything. So you have to have that integrity, throughout everything that you do, not just with clients, but with colleagues and things. So it's kind of not being, in a kind of team environment in the office. It means being honest and transparent with each other, having a bit of, being quite straight talking in terms of how you surface issues and how you kind of resolve things, and then just actually, how you treat clients and how you do that. So integrity is probably one of the kind of big watchwords for me.
Great. Well, look, thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming on. It's been a pleasure having you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.